Welcome, folks, to another episode of Go Live. My name is Emal and I am going to be your host for this session. We've joined a little bit early, so we'll get started in a couple of minutes. But in the meantime, I would love to see where you're all tuning in from. We are a global business analysis community here, and so we normally have folks from everywhere in the world tuning in to learn about the profession. So just drop a message in the comments and let me know where you're coming from. I myself am coming from Toronto, Canada, the Greater Toronto Area right now. And for many of the folks that don't know, Toronto is really the home of business analysis in many ways, as I've discussed in other videos, but I can explain to you why I say that and what I mean by that. We have Himant coming in from Dallas, Texas. Welcome, Himant. Tuning in from YouTube. Let me know where you're tuning in from. We have a LinkedIn user coming in from Chicago, and oftentimes it won't show who the user is because of the permission settings on their profile. But I'm sorry, I don't know who you are, but welcome. Hi, Rajiv. Welcome. Todd. Rajiv is coming to us from Pune, India. Todd coming in from Stroudsburg. I think PA is Pennsylvania in the US. Let me know if I've gotten that wrong, Todd. Waterloo, we have a friend coming from close to where I'm at. Welcome, Mega. South Carolina, Burlington, North Carolina. And when I see Burlington, I always think Burlington, Ontario, because there is a Burlington in the province of Ontario where I live as well. But we're coming in from North Carolina right now. We're going to get started in just one minute. Welcome. Our good friend Tracy is tuning in from Salt Lake City, and she says home of the red iguana. If you don't know what that is, I'll tell you afterwards. But red iguana is the place where I had my first true experience of real Mexican food, and it was in Salt Lake City. So welcome, Tracy. Hello. So we have lots of folks coming in, and we have some folks coming in from Toronto. We have from Wales, Saudi Arabia, Trinidad and Tobago, Ireland, India. We have Jody coming in from Texas. Oh, I nailed it. All right. PA stands for Pennsylvania is what Todd is talking about here. All right. So we're at time. Let's get started so that we can cover all of the material that I want us to get through today. As we're going through, if you have questions, put them in the chat, and occasionally I will go back to the chat and pull them up and answer questions as we're going along. So make sure you're putting all of that stuff in the chat, even though we're going through the materials here. Today, we're going to be talking about the things that you should be looking for in a good business analysis training program. And so the agenda, you see we have up on the screen here. Let me make that a little bit bigger for you so you can see it. The agenda today is going to have us walk through some of the elements in a curriculum that you should be looking for, how you should be evaluating your instructor, and some of the quick red flags that should have you maybe reconsidering a program that you're maybe thinking about signing up for. All right. And I'd like to start this conversation by talking about a bit of a personal experience that I've had in my own career. So if you're new to BA Blocks, and if you're new to these live sessions that we have, I'll introduce myself formally. My name is Emal Barielli. I've been a business analyst since 2005. Before that, I spent about 7 years getting formally educated to actually do the job of a business analyst. All right, so that's a quick recap. I've done over 20 projects as a BA. I've been in it for about 17 years, 9 employers and clients, and again, 7 years of BA education. The one thing I don't mention that often is that from the beginning of my career up until 2022, I actually managed to 5x my income as a business analyst. And I share the details of that to our community members with actual numbers and everything. And the reason why I like to put that out there is because there is a concept that I like to talk about that is called the value-based career progression. And that value-based career progression is the path that you should be following. All right. And I've written a lot about it on our website, so I won't mention it here. The personal story that I had of a training program was relatively early in my, I want to say, training and career development. And what had essentially happened to me was that I had heard a lot about, I was looking for a specific set of skills, first of all, and I'd heard a lot about a program, which I'm not going to mention. I'd heard a lot about it. I had been on their website. I had seen all of the great testimonials that they had on their website. And really, I didn't do a whole lot of due diligence because their marketing and their sales was very strong. And I decided to sign up for the program. Once I got in is where I realized how big the disconnect was between what they were promoting in their sales processes versus what they were actually delivering to their students. Because when I got into the program, it was nowhere close to the expectations that they had set during their promotional process, essentially, right? Before I had essentially signed up, they had told me a really great story. When I showed up in class, things were not so great. And if I really kind of pin it down, is I would say that what they were promising to teach was a very watered down version. What they were teaching was a very watered down version of what they were promising to teach, which I didn't expect. And second is that the instructor that they had was, it felt like the instructor had just learned the materials themselves just a week before they were teaching it, because they didn't have the depth that I was hoping that they had of experience, right? And so I hadn't done my homework. I purchased a program, and that's what I ended up with. Now, that's bad enough on its own. When I went to try to go get a refund, that's when things got much worse, because I, again, hadn't done my due diligence, and they had a no refund policy. So essentially, the minute that I signed up for the course meant I was not entitled to a refund. It was in all of their policies and procedures. So it was really my fault for not doing my due diligence. But they said, sorry, no refunds, you're here. So long story short, I stopped attending the class, and I had essentially zero recourse, which means that I couldn't get my money back, and I didn't want to continue putting in my valuable time into something that I knew wasn't going to help me. And so money wasted, but I did save some of my time by not going to the course, which is a better recourse, I guess, if you can call it that. But that was my experience very, very early on. And that experience has stuck with me for my entire career. And it has taught me a lot of things about how to choose a good training program, because since then I have selected many other training programs, and I've had a much better success rate in choosing the right program for myself. And so all of the details of what I'm talking about, you can actually see the specific companies I've taken my training programs from and when I've taken them. And I can actually explain to you exactly what my continuing education strategy has been since I graduated from my formal education. But the message really here is that I want you to be able to avoid a lot of the pitfalls that I fell into, because now I'm on the other side of the fence, right? Now I'm in a position where I'm teaching, but I have made a very strong commitment to make sure that none of our students ever experience what I had experienced then, right? I want to make sure that nobody is ever in that situation. We're doing everything we possibly can to make sure that you, as a student, are making the right decision for yourselves. And it doesn't even have to be our program. At the end of this, you might choose the program that you're still thinking about, and it's not part of BA Blocks, and that's perfectly fine, as long as you're performing your due diligence. That's what's important. All right. So with all of that said, we have looked at the agenda, but very quickly, I'm going to walk you first through the curriculum. I'm going to walk you through what you should be looking for in an instructor in quite a bit of detail. And then if you don't want to do all of that due diligence for points 1 and 2, I'll just give you a couple of red flags that should make you think twice if you don't want to put too much time into it. Comments, questions, put them in. We have a few more folks coming in. We have some folks coming in from the UK. We have some folks coming in from Nigeria. Some more folks coming in from India. Let us know where you're coming from. If you have questions or concerns or comments, put them in the chat. I'm going to get kicked off by jumping directly into talking about what you should be looking in a curriculum. Generally speaking, you have two different options, right? You have the easy road that you can take, or you have what I like to call the effective road, right? Many students, especially when they're first trying to start their business analysis careers, get very attracted to the easy road because our profession isn't the easiest profession out there, and it can be very overwhelming, right? And so I understand the desire or the appeal of wanting to take the easy road. The problem with the easy road is that it might make you feel good temporarily, right? So you might be in this quadrant here, but you'll find, as I'll demonstrate to you, you'll find that whatever it is that you've learned by taking the easy road breaks down very quickly when you get into the real world, right? And I've experienced this myself, but I'll show you exactly how that breakdown happens in just a minute. In your curriculum, I always encourage everybody to put in a little bit more time and effort. Don't sign up for the easiest program or what is made to seem like it's the easiest program. You're going to have, going through a program that's effective is it's going to be a bit of a weight on you. It may, from time to time, shatter your own confidence. You might have thought that you were better at this, and after taking a realistic program, you realize, oh no, I don't know this as well as I thought I did, right? You're going to have to go through that process a little bit. But the benefit of that, right, if you can put up with that short-term pain, the huge benefit of that is that once you enter into the real world situation, you're way better equipped because you've already undergone really kind of the exercise or the hardening of those skill sets by taking a more realistic program. All right. So these two options exist. What does the easy road look like? I'll show you an example, right? There are many programs out there that will present the profession of business analysis in a neat and clean way that kind of lays out a sequential set of steps. You get onboarded, you do a bit of ramp up, you define business objectives, you define scope, the BA work plan, detailed requirements. Wow, all of these activities would then neatly laid out for you on the screen like this, especially if you're new and you don't understand the full richness of our careers. You might look at this and say, this is the program for me. And I see that appeal because to me, even when I put it up on the screen, it looks good. But having done this for close to 20 years, I know that there are many things missing out of a process like this, right? And so if a program like this, if you're much more senior analyst and you're thinking, okay, I'm going to take a program like this to help me understand the profession completely, which is sometimes some training providers will kind of market their programs in that way. What's going to happen to you eventually is that you're going to step into the real world, and there's a chance that you're going to be bombarded with things that were nowhere near the program that you covered, right? And so essentially, you kind of take the easy road. You look at what I would consider to be a greatly simplified, kind of bit of watered down version of the full business analysis skill set. But if you don't know any better, you're going to have a lot of confidence right after you finish this program, right? That confidence may get shattered in the workplace because when you show up and you're asked, where's your BRD, right? Many people think that the concept of a business requirements document is gone and it's finished. It absolutely is not. I just finished my last client engagement in November. I can tell you with great amount of certainty that this has not left the industry, and it probably won't for a long time. Where's your current state? Where's your future state? How are you managing the product backlog, right? Are you capable of running effective workshops? Where did you document your constraints? are you capable of identifying analysis-related risks, right? There is, in the real world, this is the kind of situation that you face. And you want to make sure that when you select a program, that it's equipped you for this, all right? Especially if you're a little bit more senior. Now, some of you might take a look at this and get totally overwhelmed. Don't do that, because you don't have to learn all of these things at once. You just have to be in a position where you understand when you should be learning each of these skills. And this is even the full set. I'm going to share the full set with you in a second. Taking the effective path requires us to start leaning on industry standards, which you'll find you don't have to go too deeply into the BA-BOK. On page 2, you're going to find this diagram. This diagram kind of sets the context for the full spectrum of skills that an analyst will need throughout their careers. All right. And that full spectrum, you can already see, covers a pre-project phase of an initiative, project phase, and a post-project phase. And so business analyst oftentimes is required to take on strategy analysis tasks, requirements analysis and design definition, that's what RAD stands for, tasks, and some solution evaluation tasks. All right, this has to be the starting place if you want to understand the full spectrum. Now, many people, rightfully so, when they open up the BA-BOK and they start to go through it, they get overwhelmed. And it's okay, because I sometimes get overwhelmed, and I've been doing this for close to 2 decades. So it's okay if you feel that way. The BA-BOK isn't necessarily meant as a instruction guide. It's more of a dictionary that you look up, right? And so the way I like to explain this concept of the BA-BOK to most folks is that you wouldn't try to learn a new language by opening up a dictionary for that language and just starting to learn the words, right? You have to treat the BA-BOK in the same way, where if you're just opening up the BA-BOK and you're saying, okay, I'm just going to start flipping through the pages and this is going to teach me the career, it's not the way to use that tool, right? It sets the standard and you look up the pieces that you need when you run into a situation where you need the help. And that is how you should be using this. The introductory section actually kind of sets the tone for that. So the introduction section you should read, but the rest of the BA-BOK you should use like a dictionary. If we were to look at that as our standard and use this as a framework for deciding what skills we need to understand business analysis properly, you're going to find that the actual process that you need to do this job well looks a lot more like this. Okay, and I don't expect you to understand all of these details. I'm going to share a lot more details about each of the specific boxes here with you, and I'll show you where you can get more info on that. For now, just understand, right? If you were to look at a process that looks like this versus a process that looks like this, you can immediately start to see where the gaps are. Okay. Earlier on, when I showed you this process and I asked you, can you tell me a little bit about what kind of work was done as part of strategy analysis, right, in this process? That's not covered anywhere in here, right? Because a lot of the strategy analysis work happens before you even start this process. And again, you don't need to necessarily learn that, but if you come into the profession thinking that this is all that you need, and you've kind of bought into some of the marketing around there, you're kind of doing yourself a disservice, because you're not understanding the full spectrum of skills, and you're not necessarily preparing yourself for the reality that you might face in the work world. So the reason I show you this is because a process like this is not only aligned to industry standards, but it covers the full spectrum of skills that an analyst is likely to need throughout their careers. All right. Earlier, I told you that you don't need to learn all of this stuff at once, and you certainly don't, but you should understand what this picture is, even though you may be at the beginning of your career. Okay. If I was to, some folks look at a picture like this and they get overwhelmed. So what I like to do is to really boil this down even further for you. Okay. And if you want the easy answer for how to learn this profession really well, and you don't want to think about it too much, that's your answer right there. All right. Take a screenshot of this, and depending on which stage of your career you're at, start learning these skills. And if you do that, really, you don't even really have to understand this picture very well, but I always encourage people to understand the bigger universe so that they figure out where they can live in it. If you're not interested in doing that, I would say hit the screenshot button right now and start figuring out how you can start learning these skills. That's a short answer. Any questions so far? I'll take a quick look at the chat to see if we have any questions. We have some more folks that have come in from Toronto. Welcome, welcome. We have from Minnesota. Come on in. I don't see any questions in the chat yet, but if you do, put them in there. Otherwise, I'll continue moving on because we got quite a bit more to get through here. Okay. Message here is just make sure you understand the full spectrum of skills. And that full spectrum of skills is really supported by industry standards. Okay. So when it comes to the curriculum, you learn that this is probably the set of skills that you should be looking at based on your stage of the career that you're at. And I'll talk a little bit more about this in a second. What I would say is that the astute observers amongst the crowd here probably can start to put the pieces together to understand how these stages kind of work. Okay, so I'll show you that one more time. I'll show you that if you're at stage one, which is essentially the beginning of your career, which is represented by Justin, the junior analyst over here, you need these set of skills, but you need these set of skills because there's a high likelihood that you're going to be starting your BA career at the post-project phase of an initiative. All right. I'll explain that in more detail, but I'll say it one more time. If you're at stage one of your skills, stage one of your career, you should be focusing on these 8 items first, because there's a high likelihood that you're going to be starting your career here. And what career here means is that there's a software product that has already been delivered by a project, and what you're doing is you're essentially helping to maintain that product. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. If you're at stage 2 of your career, chances are you already started your career here, or you have a great deal of exposure and you've already kind of mastered a big chunk of the skill set here. And if you're at that stage of your career, then you should be focusing much more on building up your ability to actually design and deliver net new solutions, right? Net new products. Okay. There's a lot of concepts here that I won't get into the details right now, but essentially, if you're at stage 2 of your career and you feel like you've done enough support work, you should be focusing on that skill set for that reason. And in the same way is that if you've delivered a lot of net new solutions, or if you've helped your clients or your employer deliver a lot of net new solutions, your next step is to move into stage 3, which is represented by Shauna, the senior analyst here. Shauna's role, if I had to sum it up, is to help justify and plan for new solutions. And she does that by applying this skill set right here. And that skill set matches up directly, almost directly, with the pre-project phase of an organization. All right. So if you want to understand the different stages that a business analyst career goes through, this is the pattern This right here is the pattern. And if you want a simple answer to what skills you should learn, it's right there for you on the screen. Okay. Let's take a couple of questions. We have some folks coming in from Nigeria. Hi, Ahmad. We have Todd asks, I'm not in an official BA role, but doing a lot of BA projects, process improvement. I'm getting involved in projects that involve all three levels. Should I still start at stage one? Todd, I would say yes, because stage one, and many times these stage one skills are a bit of a prerequisite for some of the stuff that you're going to be doing in stage two. And so unless you are quite firm with the set of skills that are listed here, if you understand these skills, then I would say start with stage two. But if you don't feel confident with these skills, you should start here, because many of these skills are what you're going to need to do detailed functional specifications during a project. And so this functional specifications has more to it, but some of these skills right here come into play when you're trying to do detailed specs. Okay. Ola asks, what is the cost associated with the project part of a BA class coming up after the 7 free classes? I think I might have received an email for that. Our pricing information is in the works. The prices have kind of shifted a little bit, but we'll let you know that as soon as we have it. We're anticipating mid next week. If you want a ballpark, is that our stage one skill program is going to be between 2,000 and 2,500 USD. And our stage two program, we'll talk about pricing later on. But at this current time, this skill set that's kind of the ballpark that you're looking at. But this specific price, we'll talk about next week. Our stage three program is not even ready yet. This is coming out in 2025. And so we're far away from doing any kind of pricing on that. But we have taught stage two and stage one skills for the last couple of years. Rajiv says, yes, indeed. I'm not sure what you're referring to, Rajiv, but if you want to clarify, you can let us know in the chat. Let me move on so I can make sure I cover the rest of the materials here before we run out of time, because I want to make sure that at the very least, you can vet whatever program you're taking a look at. And again, look, I'm an instructor and I'm teaching, but by no means do you have to sign up for our program. Think of this workshop as you upskilling yourself so that you can vet the program you are looking at. All right, so let me take a look here, and we have, okay, so we've talked about this diagram and what we've talked about the skill set. We've talked about, generally speaking, how the skill set kind of plays out in a large initiative. Now, part of the reason why we know this skill set fits in here is because as educators, we have access to additional materials from the BA book that guides us to make sure that we're teaching you the skills that you need. So if we were to kind of lay out the stage one skill set of our program across the 3 different levels of the IIBA certifications, it would look roughly something like this, where stage one kind of crosses the ECBA to CCBA level. The stage two kind of picks up somewhere in this area and takes you well into CBAP level, and stage three is beyond that, essentially, okay, roughly speaking. That's one metric that we use to figure out where we draw the lines between stage one and stage two. But the other tool that I use and that we use at our program is our own business analysis careers. Because if you were to actually look at the career that I've had myself, what IIBA tells us the different stages are lines up quite well with what I've experienced in my own career. And so I've personally gone through the process of becoming a junior analyst and seeing what kind of work I do here, right? As a permanent employee, I've moved into what I would consider to be stage 2 with intermediate skills and into senior level skills. And I've been practicing those senior level skills as a BA consultant for the last decade or so. So we draw a lot on this. And if you were to look at Danielle's career, you're going to see that she has quite a bit of experience that we also draw from as well. So the reason why we know and we have so much confidence that this is the way that things work is because, again, it's backed by standards and it lines up almost perfectly with our own career development. Okay. That brings us to the conversation we need to have about your instructors. And I'll move through this one a little bit quickly. I do see the questions in the chat, and I'll get to them in 1 second. So continue putting those in the chat if you have any. The thing that you want to be looking out for when it comes to your instructors is that you want to make sure that your instructors have the depth of experience. Because as I said earlier, our profession is not easy. There are many times where you have to go off script in a class and ask a question that's not covered by any of the items. And your instructor has to have the depth of the experience to be able to have that conversation with you. And an instructor who's really just learned this material from the books and through just formal education, they're incapable of having those kinds of conversations. Many times, a lot of the real value of buying a good training program has to do with the fact that it's being taught by people who can extend themselves well above and beyond the formal concepts. All right. A good course that I have taken in my class, I'll show you I'll take a quick detour just to give you an example. In 2016, I took this course called Enterprise Risk Management, Intro to Credit and Market Risk at the University of Toronto. By 2016, I had learned how to vet my instructors. And so I waited for that course to have the instructor that I wanted before I signed up for it, right? So I went and I skipped a couple of times because it was being taught by folks who I felt like weren't the right caliber of instructor. And I waited until they found the president and CEO of a boutique investment firm that actually does this on a daily basis. And that instructor was driving from the financial district in Toronto onto the campus right after work to teach that class. And the amount of detours that instructor would take was so valuable to me because there would be a concept in this course where the book says one thing and the instructor says, yes, formally speaking, that's how it works. But we just got audited by the regulators 2 months ago. Let me explain to you how that audit went, because here are the specific things that they look for when they did this to us in practice to make sure that our risk management practices in our investment firm works the way it should, right? And so that level of depth is what you want to look for in an instructor. I do it for all of the training programs. I will never, I've made it a habit now, and I take training regularly on many different subjects. I refuse to sign up with somebody who's learned the subject through academic understanding alone. Okay. If you want to get very specific about your instructor experience, here are the 3 main things you should be looking for. Number 1, they should have experience at least 1 COTS project and 1 custom project. And if you don't know what those terms mean, we explain it in our community in great amount of detail. COTS essentially means that it's a product that they've purchased. So Salesforce, for example, is a piece of COTS software. So instead of a company building their own custom tailored CRM system, they would purchase Salesforce and then they would work with the Salesforce consultants to configure it to satisfy their requirements. That's what a COTS project looks like. And Salesforce is just one example. I've worked with Workday, I've worked with SAP, I've worked with Oracle. I work with Infor. There's a whole suite of products. There's a whole market of products out there that your company can purchase and implement. And as an analyst, you have to make sure you have a little bit of experience there so you can teach that subject well. Custom tailored solutions are typically solutions where you have a development team who's coding and building the features and functions of a product from the ground up. And you can tailor that type of a solution way more than you can a COTS project. And as an analyst, as the go-between between your tech team and your customers, two different ball games being on one project versus another. All right, you have, and again, I won't get into it too deeply here, just keeping time in mind, but make sure that your instructor has some experience in both of those types of projects. The second thing you want to make sure is that your instructor has some experience on what are referred to in the industry as greenfield versus brownfield projects. If everything that your instructor has done has been on a greenfield, then they haven't experienced the true difficulty of doing this job well, because most of the challenges are on brownfield projects. Okay, and we kind of think of greenfield projects as you having a totally clean slate and you can build whatever processes and whatever software components that you want to meet the business need. But on a brownfield project, you have some massive constraints that prevent you from actually building exactly what you want, because you're not building on empty land, right? The land that you're building on is occupied, and you have to essentially make sure that your whatever it is that you're delivering for your customers fits within the neighborhood that's surrounded by a bunch of other buildings, for lack of a better way of saying it. But your solution essentially on a brownfield project has to fit and integrate into an existing application portfolio that your company has. And that is much more difficult than just building a standalone solution for your customers. So make sure your instructor has sufficient experience in both of these. And you can do that just by going through the projects that they've worked on, and you can get a good sense of whether it has integration, whether they have essentially helped to redesign and re-engineer a lot of business processes. It will give you a good sense of that, and I can teach you how to do that more. Third thing you want to always look for is that you want to make sure that your instructor has had at least one full end-to-end project execution under their belts. And what I mean when I say end-to-end is that they've started here, right? And they've ended here. And they've basically gone through the entire set of activities that we talked about here. They've gone through the full suite of activities that we cover here all the way to the end. Okay. If you can do those three things, then you can look at your instructor and make sure that they have, at bare minimum, at least one project in each of these areas. Then you have the confidence that they're going to be able to field the questions that you have for them. And again, my own example, when I took my credit and market risk, part of the reason why I took this course was because I wanted to learn more domain knowledge about the financial sector, and specifically about how investment companies manage risk. It's domain knowledge. It's a domain that's very big here in Toronto, and I wanted to learn about the subject matter. And I wanted to make sure I learn it from somebody who does it, not necessarily from somebody who's just going to read the book and read the curriculum for me. All right. Going to look at the comments, see if we have any questions. Let's see, 1 second here. Just navigating through. So that's what you're looking for in an instructor. We're going to get to the red flags in a minute. We have about 10 minutes left. I'm going to quickly scan through the questions here to see if we have any more questions popping up. I think Ola, we had answered your question about the cost. Siddharth, intermediate business analyst, complex configurations. Oh, okay, you're from the US. Welcome. Debo says, looking at this, I feel like a stage 1 doing a stage 3 role. What do you recommend? Okay, so Debo, hopefully I'm pronouncing your name right there. What you're essentially saying is that you feel like you're at this stage, but your company is asking you perhaps to help do a lot of the more strategy analysis related tasks. My recommendation for you is two different ways you could go. If you have this picture at your disposal in a conversation, you could have a conversation with management and say, hey, look, I need to work my way up to that level of what you're asking me. Essentially, in this role, what you're trying to do is you're trying to lessen the expectation that your management has on you. That may not work. If it doesn't work, your only other option really is to accelerate yourself through this process and start to learn the really kind of, I would say, if I was in your position, I would slim down this skill set even more, right? I would trim this down to probably about 3 or 4 skills that you want to learn. And then I would start trimming this down a little bit more to get yourself into this as quickly as possible. Is it ideal? No, it's not. But if that's your only option, you're going to have to cut some corners here. In even though like this is a slimmed down version, you're going to have to slim this down even more to get yourself here as quickly as possible. Okay. Our courses can help you to do that. But if you're trying to do it on your own, you just find a program that can help you kind of accelerate your way through that all of those skills to get you where you want. LinkedIn user says, hoping you're the instructor for all the stages. I am the instructor. And so short answer to that is yes. But again, stage number 3 here is not prepared yet because this is coming in 2025. Much more advanced skill set. You have to have probably a couple of projects under your belt before you can build a really good business case to help justify a solution. Okay. Tracy says, love this deck. Is this opening? Could you share for download? Yes, I absolutely can. I'm going to tell you exactly where you can get this deck right after this, but I'll tell you, this deck is just the starting point. What I'm about to share with you right at the end here will take you well beyond this even. So you probably won't even want this deck by the time I show you what you're going to get. Jody says, domain knowledge is so critical. Absolutely. Absolutely. And domain knowledge is critical. And also, eventually, if you want to specialize in a specific product, like Salesforce, for example, you also want to, as an analyst, you want to start building up some product knowledge. You want to start understanding the capabilities of the product, because as an analyst, that empowers you to have way better conversations with your customers about what is and is not possible in the early requirement stage. And that increases the value that you're providing to your clients because it shortens the number of conversations you need to have. So domain knowledge, if you want to specialize, domain knowledge is critical, but also eventually you want to gain some product knowledge so that you can provide a higher level of service to your employer and your clients. So thank you for that comment. Jody, we had Todd says, with Debo, I'm new to this, but being asked to put together strategic roadmaps for technology development for our department. Okay. You know what I would say is make sure you register for our day 1. By the end of the second week, by the end of our free learning event, I'll do everything I possibly can to help you build your own personalized roadmap. Okay. And for the folks that don't know, I'm just assuming that you know what I'm talking about here. Let me just show you very quickly what I'm talking about. We have this event that starts this Saturday. The registration for this event closes in 25 minutes. Okay. So if you need help to build your own personal analysis, a business analysis roadmap, that's essentially what our goal is that we give you, and again, this costs you nothing. We walk you through the process that Justin would follow at the very beginning of his career. We give you a deep dive in the core skill set. And then by day 7, we help you build your own roadmap to help you figure out how you can attain the skills to get to where you need to. So I would say, you know what? Let me scratch my previous answer that I gave you, Debo. Sign up for this and build your own personalized business analysis roadmap. I completely forgot that we're starting this. I would say that's probably your fastest route right now. All right. A few more comments. What stage will the 7-day free training course comes under? So this comes under this here. Okay, so everything that I just showed you here, this process matches up very, very, that's essentially us laying out the simple process that Justin should be learning as part of here. That's where we start. All right. It says, oh, you're very welcome. Jody says, yes, product knowledge for the one. Absolutely. Absolutely. Debo says, let's hook up on LinkedIn. Yeah, definitely. Send me a LinkedIn request, but I'll tell you that if you want to attend our day one event, make sure you're registered on the website where I showed you. Let me just get through the rest of what I wanted to cover here so that you, at the very least, if you're in a position where you don't want to do a whole lot of research, I'll show you 2 quick red flags that can help you to make a quick decision without really doing any due diligence. But again, I recommend you do your full due diligence because that's what a good analyst does, right? What I would say is we've already talked about this. Let's talk about the red flags. 2 red flags that you should always be looking for. Number 1 is refund policy. Okay, don't make the mistake that I made. Read the refund policy before you make your payment. And I'll elaborate on that in just 1 second, but your refund policy that you're signing up for is essentially like, you have to look at it like an insurance policy. All right. There's a certain amount of risk. If you're going to pay thousands of dollars for a training program, you're putting your finances at risk because you might not get what you paid for. Your refund policy helps eliminate that risk because if you paid for something that you're not getting, the refund policy should mitigate that risk by giving you your money back. So red flag number 1, if your program says no refunds, you should say no, thank you. Move on to the next program. All right. Second red flag is a one-size-fits-all program. And bit of a typo here, but let me tell you what I mean by one-size-fits-all. One-size-fits-all is a program that tries to essentially condense an entire profession down into one program. Okay, there's no such thing as a one-size-fits-all program in our profession. Some people don't want to hear that, but it's true, and I know it's true because I've been through, I've been essentially started this in 1998, 1999 when I started getting educated. Trust me, there's no such thing as a one-size-fits-all program. And that's why any program that you look at should be focusing on specific stages with specific components. Okay. What a lot of training programs do is that they try to ignore a lot of what goes on in these different stages, and they present really a junior level program as a one-size-fits-all. That doesn't exist. Essentially, what they're doing is they're ignoring a massive chunk of what a business analyst is expected to do to be able to pull that off. Okay. Quick pop quiz. Going back to refunds, your insurance policy for purchasing the right program. These are the 2 refund policies from 2 different companies. I would ask, and you can put your answer in the chat, I would ask you, which one of these 2 companies has confidence in their own program? Company A or Company B? Company A has the refund policy that's similar to the one that I made the mistake of signing up for, right? Give them my money. I didn't even read the refund policy. I just signed up because there were so many good things being said about the program. I just signed up, and I learned the hard way that I'm not getting my money back, right? And again, that's not their fault. Their refund policy was clear. I just didn't perform my due diligence, and I should have, right? You should save yourself the trouble that I went through. Take a look at the refund policy, and if they say no refunds after payment, you say no, thank you. Move on to the next program. If you look at a refund policy of a company that has, all right, we have an answer, right? One of our participants says B is the right answer. And yes, obviously, right? A company that really believes that they can help you has no reason to put these kinds of constraints in front of the decision that you have to make. Companies that have confidence say, look, come on in. If you're not happy, not a problem. No hard feelings. We'll give you a full refund and you can do whatever you want. Because the company has true belief that they can help you do what you need to do. Anytime I see no refunds over the course of my life, anytime somebody says no refunds, immediate red flag. Why are you saying that? Right? Why are you saying no refunds? Why would you not say, hey, come try it out, and if you don't like it, we'll give you your money back? And that why oftentimes leads to the fact that they themselves don't have true confidence in their programs. Gonna leave it there. But I am going to encourage you to make sure you sign up for day one. And to do that, you're going to have to go to bablocks.com. You're going to see a page that looks like this. Scroll all the way to the bottom, put in your name and your email address. We do not spam people. We do not sell your email address or anything like that. And if you ever want us to stop sending you emails, you just hit the unsubscribe button at the bottom of the email and you won't hear from us again. All right. But if you want to learn this profession well, this is your starting point. And we don't ask you for anything. Just come and learn. And you don't even have to sign up. Look, I'll tell you that by the time you're finished learning everything that we're trying to jam into this 7 days, you might not even need to spend any money. Okay. If you do, we have options for you to actually produce real deliverables and get feedback, but you lose nothing but some time commitment by attending our free event. All right. Registration for that officially closes in 10 minutes. So make sure you're doing that right now. We've been talking about this for over a month. And so we do have to close the deadline because enrollment starts tomorrow. Yash says, can I ask a question? Absolutely. Yeah, sure. Go ahead. And while you're asking your question in the chat there, thank you for putting that in the chat for us, Imelda. We are looking at another question that pops up that says, do you teach one-on-one classes? Unfortunately not. One-on-one is very, it's a level of service that's very difficult for us to provide at a price that most people can afford. One-on-one time's quite expensive to be able to pull off. So our EBTA program, once it comes out in 2025, there's a high likelihood that that's either going to be a small group of 3 people or possibly one-on-ones, because that's the kind of attention it deserves. But the price of that project is going to have to reflect that as well. So short answer right now is that there is currently no one-on-ones. We have done Debo, we'll see you there. You're going to get the enrollment link starting tomorrow morning is when enrollment starts. And so you'll be able to come onto our platform. You actually get free access to our community for that full 2 weeks as well. So you get to kick the tires. Yash says, if I have no degrees, is it difficult to get a BA job in North America? Short answer, I would say, is difficult, but not impossible. Yes, it is difficult, but it's not impossible. So most North American companies that hire oftentimes ask for either a degree or sufficient experience. You have to have one of those two things. It's better if you have both, but a degree, it's starting to loosen up a little bit. But from what I've seen right now in the job market, they're still asking for degrees. So it's difficult, but it's not impossible, because I have personally worked with business analysts who do not have a degree. So they have found a way into the profession because they have spent the time to kind of work their way in. And one of the ways you can do that, I've described inside of, I believe it's a video on our YouTube channel where I talked about the paths to getting in, but there is a path you can get into the profession. It's a bit of a longer path, but you can get in without a degree if you take the path that we talked about in that video. I'll see if I can. Yash, I would say, you know what, sign up for day one and ask that question inside our community again, and I'll point you to the right. Video that explains how you can do that. The next question is, BA Blocks is one of the great communities for BAs and one who's aspired to become one in the future. Okay, thank you. Thank you for that comment. Thank you for that comment, Siddharth. Join us. Todd asks, I have a degree in mechanical engineering, but I want to move into a formal BA role where I can receive mentorship, guidance, learn best practices, etc. Is this a good idea, or should I stay where I am and learn as much as I can on my own before venturing out? I'm worried about having to take a big salary cut to move into a full-time BA role right now. This is a difficult question, but I'll do my best to answer it based on my own experiences, Todd. So I took a big pay cut very early on in my career, which was very counterintuitive for everybody that I worked at here. All right. So everybody that I worked at the organization where I took the pay cut, I'll show you exactly where I took my pay cut so you can kind of get a bit of context of how I made this decision. When I had first started my career, I had started for an organization where I was building and managing an intranet. And from that job to my next job, I took over 20% pay cut. But I took that pay cut knowing or having confidence that the next job I was going into had the opportunities that I wanted. And I was willing to put in the work to make sure that I can get there. Now, it's hard to give you clear guidance without really understanding the full picture of where you're at, because if you have to take a pay cut, there might be financial constraints that prevent you from taking too big of a pay cut. If you have a lot of that freedom, I would say that for a mechanical engineer, the likelihood of you succeeding in this profession is very high, because a big part of what we do has to do with a lot of logical thinking, a lot of, I want to say, don't want to call it rigid, but you need to be good with software products to really be good at this. And mechanical engineers tend to have that type of a mindset, right? So I'm not comfortable giving you a yes or no answer right now. I would say, you know what, sign up and let's talk inside of our community a little bit more about the possible paths. I would feel like it's irresponsible for me to say yes or no until I actually understand a little bit more. It's a big decision. If as a trainer, I'm incentivized to say yes, sign up for our program. But I'll say, as a professional, that would be irresponsible. And so, let's talk about it. Yash says, last question, and we'll take a few more. Last question: what are BA salaries like compared to other industries? IIBA released its salary survey, and it was in the $70,000 to $80,000 a year, which is well above average for North America, for both Canada and the US. I'll tell you that 70 to 80,000 is on the low end. I'll tell you from personal experience, because if you remember, I told you how, as an experienced business analyst, I've 5x'd my income by 2022. Now, again, that's a long road. There's a lot of stuff that you have to be able to do to get there. But when I look at the $70,000 to $80,000 a year number, to me, where I'm at right now as a very senior analyst, that's way on the low end of the spectrum, because you can get well above $100,000, $150,000. Some business analysts get well above $200,000 a year. It's not easy, though. I don't want to make it seem like you're going to come in here and you're going to start making $200,000 a year as a business analyst. It's not that easy. Trust me, there's a lot of skill building, a lot of stress and pressure, and quite a bit of investment you have to do before you can get there. But short answer right now is between $70,000 to $80,000 for, I would say, an intermediate level business analyst in North America. Sounds reasonable. Are we going to receive further email with the link to join day one? Yes, those emails are going out tomorrow. Starting tomorrow morning, we're closing registration today, and all invitations are going out tomorrow. Are we going to receive further email with the link to join day one? Yes, that's right. That's right. Todd says, I agree. It's a tough question. I appreciate your input. You're very welcome, Todd. Folks, we'll take one or two more questions, and then I do have to run because I have to assist with the closing of the registration and in getting everything ready for Saturday. Will there be a recording for those who are attending the training? The recording is available for the folks who attend the training for the 2 weeks for day one. And for our full training programs, the recordings, so for example, if you decide to sign up for one of our courses here, these recordings are available to you indefinitely. And so you can come back to them anytime that you want and go back through the course materials. All right. I do have to cut it off there, folks. I want to thank you all for taking the time. I hope this has been helpful, and I hope that we see you inside. Siddharth says registered. Excellent. We'll see you there. If you do want additional help completely free of charge, we don't ask you for anything, make sure you're registered. I'll leave this here. Yes, I am the instructor for the 7-day learning as well, LinkedIn user. Sorry, I don't see your profile, but I do have to get running here. I appreciate you all showing up, and hopefully we'll see you inside our community. I hope this has been helpful. Again, regardless of which way you decide to go with your decisions, just make sure you do some due diligence ahead of time so that you're getting what you're paying for. All right. Leave it off with that message. Take care, everyone.